of Bangladesh has been through fieldwork with Dr. David Peterson, who is the chair of linguistics at Dartmouth College. And on Professor Junaid Imtiaz Ali's invitation, he has actually sent a video presentation to IMLI. And since his presentation is about 15 minutes, I'm going to cut mine short. I will just use my talk as a preamble for that presentation. So I will basically be talking about preservation and promotion of mother languages, and through my own experience in fieldwork, the mother languages that I've come across and what is basically required in terms of logistically going down into the field and doing hands-on research. Also talk a little bit about IMLI as developing as a research hub, and then I will continue on to the video presentation. We've talked about mother languages and what it is, and at very first pass, it's the first language or native tongue, and in linguistics we usually say it's one that they learn either at birth or acquired before the critical period, which is the pubescent period up until the age of 12. It's also the language that's considered what they are most comfortable communicating in, so often first languages and second languages can switch places depending on language atrophy. And most importantly, mother language is one that forms a basis for sociolinguistic identity. And when we think of Bangladesh, we think of Bangla. And of course, this number has been debated in terms of how many mother languages actually exist in Bangla. Mr. Fazul Chaudhry said 37? 38. I saw 41 on Ethnologue actually. and then I think Ms. Lothar said there were more languages in terms of languages being used for first language education. Whatever be the number, it is large and it is within the ballpark of late 30s and mid 40s. And it's interesting because the language families, Bangla belongs to Indo-European, but apart from Indo-European, we also have Sino-Tibetan and Austroasiatic, which shows us how diverse the linguistic situation in Bangladesh actually is. And Bangla being the main language is also considered the official language of use in education, in courts, and in other arenas, whereas English also dominates in such arenas and is considered the second language. As for the minority languages in Bangladesh, some are quite robust, but a lot of these languages, I mean, given that there are 41 or 41 total numbers, but at least 30 plus languages of such small communities that some are very endangered. And I should have put up the name on the slide, but this just last December, I was working with Dr. Peterson, and he has come across a language which was thought to be dead, but it was rediscovered and only 30 speakers remain. It's called Rengmicha. And the community has been subsumed within the Mro community. And given that there are only 30 speakers, and the speakers are, the age range is from 50 to 70, and the younger generations are not learning the language. So that actually makes Rengmicha one of the most endangered languages in the world. But it also, discovering this language bumps up. If it's 41, it's bumped up our number to 42. It was tested to see whether it was a dialect or a language, and it was found that it was indeed a separate language rather than being a dialect of Mro. And it's more closely related to the Kumi language. So given that there are these languages, and for a language like Rengmicha, like we barely have...
Very short questions.
Talking about, once actually they have Bengali medium school, actually there was plenty of number of Bengali medium schools, but they can't compete with their, I mean that state civil service, I mean that exam. They can compete with the English medium students. So they just gave up all those schools. So it is the similar experience actually. In our any educational, or any, service.
I have a request to make. If we think Bengali as a certain language,
yeah,
you can go on, and that there will be no end of discussion here. So we think of other languages now. I think we should.
Because we don't have so many languages like you. Official 17 language in India. We have only one official language. So that's my question. That how could we actually, cope up with this situation?
In a separate forum. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
On the days, so many important points have come up that it will be a difficult task for the President to touch upon every one of them. So I will briefly go on with the points that have been raised, very important points. Now, English role comes in finally deciding how many other languages are spoken here in Bangladesh. There should be mapping of the language. There should be a creation of a large database for these languages, for the demographic background of these languages. Also, if there is some nomadic tribes that move on from here and there, database about their language should also be created here, maintained, preserved here. So this is one of the first tasks of English. Mapping, survey, creating a database of spoken and visual documentation and archiving of all these languages. I am leaving aside Bangla because Bangla is not the point of issue here now. Secondly, what will be the program of action? I think here the role of the government comes in. It's not just the role of IMLI. IMLI is a part of the government, but the government with all its powerful departments, they should pitch in the tasks which I have done. Making orthography. It will depend on the size of the language. If there are 2,000 or 3,000 speakers, whether you will have to decide whether it is worthwhile to create an orthography for the language, or whether they will have to adapt the orthography of another language. I don't know. That will have to be decided. Once you create an orthography, you have to create textbooks, grammar, dictionaries, knowledge literature, creative literature by translating as well as creating indigenously, newspapers, periodicals, etc. That will once again depend on the size of the language. You have to create also a visual environment for reading these languages once you create an orthography for them. What I mean by visual environment is that using the language written in the road signs, shop signs, hoarding, government hoardings, public notifications, banners, all those things, so that the minority group can see its language written everywhere around, at least in its own locality where it is concentrated. Secondly, you will have to create, the government has the primary role in it, create a listening environment so that the group can listen to its language, whether it can be broadcast over the radio, on television. So a listening environment should also be made. Also you can make, every minority language has a lot of folklore material. These can be made into series, these can be broadcast over the radio, and such kind of listening environment for these languages should also be attempted and made. And how to create an awareness, not just an awareness, but love and respect for the language. Once you organize the languages hierarchically, this is the official language, this is the major educational language, These are the languages which are located in the respective areas, home language.